What's going on, everyone? Thank you all so much for being here. Anybody that's coming in at this time, thank you so much for taking time out of your day, spend with us. Anybody that's watching this on the replay, thank you so much. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, just as Dominico did. Appreciate you, Gary. Thank you so much for subbing. Gary was over at my Laker show and decided to come over here. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Gary. But diving right into it, because time is money, right? So no, but Lakers first off got the win tonight against the Charlotte Hornets, so that was awesome.
Back-to-back wins.
Yes, 2 wins. We got the win to end the year, and then we got the win to start the year. So hopefully we can build some momentum off of that, continue to grow that, continue to build, and go in a positive direction. LeBron's playing out of his mind. He's putting up 40 and both of these wins, nearly a 50 piece. But ideally, you don't want that to have to be the only reason you win. You don't want to have to rely on, LeBron James to give you 50 a night to get a W, right?
Yeah.
You need better than that. But nonetheless, what are your thoughts on like the Lakers going in the new year? Do you think like they're done? Do you think that they have like no, it's not over until it's over? Or like what is your generalized thoughts, and especially about these wins, like getting a couple wins? How do you feel about this?
Well, I was just looking at some standings and where we stand. It's funny that you mentioned that because I was just looking like an overview for the rest of the season. Obviously we're not the worst team in our division. Obviously we're not the worst team in the league or our division, really. I think there's a chance we can still make the play-in. I think that, to answer your question, in this case, the scenario, it won't be over until it's over, just because we're too middle of the, like, you know what I mean? We're too middle of like the pack. It could go either way of like pretty much either way, honestly. With our record, how we've been playing, the games we've been winning, like, to crying out loud, yeah, the Nuggets aren't the best team in the NBA, but we have still beat them twice. You know what I mean? They're the best team in our division. We still beat them twice. So if we can beat the best team in our division twice, I think if we could stretch out the, I know we got a couple like tough games coming up. If we can stretch out the rest of this year and also get to the playoffs and kind of scrap it out a little bit, hey, you never know. But yeah, it's literally like 50-50. Like if I was a betting man, I would not say the season's over. And I actually, matter of fact, would bet more so that we would have a greater chance of making the play-in and getting into the playoffs than we wouldn't.
Yeah.
Like, so, I don't know. And we'll see, because we play the Heat next. So if we can beat the Heat, like, we just lost to the Heat, like, pretty bad. So, like, if we can, the last time we played them, which was just 2 games ago. So if we can beat the Heat, I'm hoping that shows, like, hey, we can't let a team beat us twice. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, that is the whole – I mean, and, it's one game at a time at this point, right? You're waiting for AD. Yeah. AD should hopefully be back come, middle of this month, ideally. So at this point, it's just weathering the storm and trying to stay afloat. You got a pretty reasonable stretch of games coming up, right? Yeah. That you could easily rattle off a couple wins, and all of a sudden you're right back into the conversation, right? Yeah. Again, like you said, if we beat Miami, we're one step closer. These teams keep losing, so that helps us, right? Like, and we need them. We need them to keep losing. Luckily, the West is so give and take, right? You got like
the West is not that good this year. Like,
I mean, they're all like equally good. You know what I mean? Like, because usually there's like those like 2 or 3 standout teams, right? Those, you got like the 2 or 3 teams that are just like, you're like, these teams are better than everyone else in the West, and then you get that like, 2 or 3 teams that is like, oh man, like you could see them, like they could surprise somebody, they could win a championship, right, in the West. And then like everyone else is kind of like, all right, like nothing's gonna happen with these guys. But this year it's kind of like there isn't that pecking order. There's not that dominant like 2 or 3 teams in the West. They're all kind of like, you could see like any of these like 5 to 7 teams coming out the West this year.
Well, those teams that look scary, and there's no like team that looks like, oh, like we don't want to play them. Like, no, like even if you look at the Nuggets, like some of the games that the Nuggets are losing, it's weird. You know what I mean? And it's just not like they're not a super dominant team. Like they're doing all right, but like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like the West is the West is the East looks far more dangerous to me in my eyes.
I think the West. I think most likely I think either the Bucks or the Celtics win it this year. That's just me personally. I really do. I think the
Bucks or the Celtics win
the championship this year.
I could see the Celtics. I wouldn't count the Celtics. I could see the Celtics for sure.
I think they're the two best teams in the NBA right now. Granted, trade deadline's coming up. Something crazy happens, which I don't really think. I think it's going to be more of a mellow. I think there'll be a lot of like role guys shifting. Because I think you're going to have a lot of like tanking teams that are going to want to like sell some of their role guys. So I could see a lot of like that. I think there'll be a lot of like, I could see a lot of like 4 or 5 player moves, right? But not necessarily like the big blockbuster trade. I don't see, whatever, KD getting traded or something crazy where everyone's like, no way, like that really just happened, right? Like that's what I don't see. But in general, I mean, the Lakers, whatever it is, the Lakers got to get in on those trades. Like if teams are selling the role guys, the Lakers got to try to get into those conversations, right?
Oh, like absolutely.
We need depth. And my hope is still kind of the Hornets deal. And I'm hoping that maybe now it'll be a little more the Hornets will be a little more inclined because now they don't have to play the Lakers again for the rest of the year, right? Because they only have to play the East teams twice. So their games are already done. So if the Hornets traded everybody to the Lakers, they wouldn't have to see any of them until next season.
And I believe they're the worst team in the. I know they're the worst. They're one of the worst team in the division. I think
they're one of the worst teams in the league. Period. They're like
so it's like race. At this point, you know what I mean. I don't want. Yeah, there's no hanging on to the season for them.
Yeah, no,
nothing's gonna change this season for them. That's gonna be like, oh, we can make the championship.
Yeah, there's not gonna be any like big like surprises. But Gary said, "What are your thoughts on a Russ to the Spurs trade at the deadline?" I could see that happening right now. The Spurs asking price for everyone is just too high. But come closer to the trade deadline, that could easily lighten up because, right now they want like 2 firsts for Jakob Poeltl. They want like a first for Josh Richardson, first for Doug McDermott. So like you're talking 4 firsts that the Lakers would have to give up for those guys. Maybe if you take all 3 firsts, Lakers don't have 3 firsts even if they want to. And that deal isn't worth both firsts. So if the Spurs come down on their asking price, which they very well might, right? You're probably losing the Jakob Poeltl at the end of the season, and you're very likely losing Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott at the end of the season, right? Yeah. Like they're all free agents, or they can be next season. And do any of those teams want to ride the bench for a tanking team? Probably not. Especially when you go to like a Laker team and do that. So I could see that happening. I'm not against it. I think the Spurs deal and the Hornets deal might be the 2 best deals because also the Spurs deal gets you a trade exception.
Yeah.
So if you take on Jakob Poeltl, you'd get like a $14 to $15 million trade exception. If you don't take on Jakob Poeltl, you get like a $21 million trade exception. So the Lakers can do a deal with the Spurs to kind of get their role guys and and give up like 1 first. Well, then you could use that trade exception, Patrick Beverley, Kendrick Nunn, whatever, and maybe go pull off another deal. And now you go get 2, 3, 4, 5 guys that could really kind of help this team.
And it's February 9th. So the Spurs and all these other teams do have a little over a month and a half to kind of get their ducks in a row and figure something out. But honestly, I think something's going to happen more so around the beginning of February, like that first few days. I don't think they're going to wait all the way until the 9th, but just to be safe. But no, it's interesting to see what they do. Hopefully they come down. If they really want to move these pieces, then depends on how bad that San Antonio thinks that they can go and get like a Victor or somebody like that.
Yeah, I mean we're likely about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks away, 2.5 weeks away before like trades start really popping up. Because I mean we're still over a month and a week before the trade deadline. So with that usually means that teams aren't in a rush to do a deal. As we get to like towards the end of January, then that's when teams start talking. And I do imagine in the next like 2 weeks or so, you'll probably start hearing the ramped up trade rumors, teams coming out of left field, all that stuff. Because teams are still trying to evaluate where they at, right? Like, and by the end of January is usually like the midway point. So teams are kind of like, okay, like it's time to make a decision. Are we going to tank? Are we going to try to make a push? Like, are we in a position? And then you get those teams that are like, I thought we were going to be good. We weren't good, and not like a team like the Bulls, right? Bulls lost a game today. They were up 20. It's like they weren't very good last year. They're not very good this year. And it's like, at what point, if you're Chicago, do you say enough is enough? Like, we're paying all this money for a team that can barely make the play-in or the playoffs. Time to blow everybody up. And we're stuck with this team for the next, 4 years. So, it'll be interesting to see how the trade front goes. But we're still probably about 2 weeks away. I love your take on the Hornets trade, but to be honest, the only player I want from them is Gordon Hayward. I like Spurs players, and coming from the system, I think they would really fit well. Just my 2 cents. Look, I love the Spurs deal too. Problem is that like with the Hornets, if you get the full Hornets package that's been rumored, then you get all the size we need. Like the problem is Josh Richardson is still like he's Walker's height. So he's like 6'4", right? Yeah. And like he's more of like a KCP type guy. Jakob Poeltl would be nice at center. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind him. And he's a great passer. Doug McDermott, he's 6'7", I believe. But like he's not, he doesn't play 6'7". He's more of he might as well be Buddy Hield out there, 6'4", 6'3", just shooting the ball. Like where if you get Gordon Hayward is the best player in that trade period, but injuries, right?
Not right now, but I mean,
if he can stay healthy. But Terry Rozier, I think
you don't think Terry is though.
He's not the best player. No,
Gordon. I guess on a consistent front, Hayward.
The problem is the reason a lot of people don't like the Hornets trade is because Terry Rozier is playing so bad this year. But the thing is, like, if you look at him last year, like Terry Rozier had an incredible year last year, incredible. But a lot of that was because he was the third, fourth guy on the team, right? Where this year he's kind of like the number one guy for a long stretch. So his volume, his shooting, everything has like just taken a skyrocket. So his percentages have gone down because he's not like the efficient guy that he was in the previous years. He's also not getting the looks that he was in the previous years. If he goes to a team like the Lakers, he's no longer going to be the guy. He's going to go back to that third, fourth option on the Lakers. So I imagine he would get back to that production that he had last year. Because you got to remember, last year you had LaMelo Ball for almost the entirety of the season. You had Miles Bridges, you had PJ Washington, you had those guys who were kind of like the forefront guys, right? And then Gordon Hayward when he was healthy. So Rozier fluctuated between like that third, fourth, fifth best player on the Hornets. That's what he would likely be with the Lakers, because he'd be at best third in the pecking order behind LeBron and AD. Realistically, if Hayward's healthy, he's probably fourth. So he now just becomes a scorer, slashing threat, things like that. Like he really helps in those areas. So I do imagine that he would improve better. Gordon Hayward, he would, he might be the best fit in the league for LeBron James, Anthony Davis. He can stay healthy. You also get PJ Washington, who's 24 years old and putting up like 16 a game, shooting like 37% from three. Like he is great, right? Like he's a piece that you really want, right? And then on top of that, Kelly Oubre, if he has a good year, you keep him. If he doesn't, just let him go. It's not the end of the world. But you get more of the size we need, right? Like we need wing depth terribly. We need guys that can guard.
Yeah, we do
terribly. Like and that's what the Spurs deal doesn't really get us. Spurs deal gets us, gets us pieces that I think help a lot. But Josh Richardson isn't like a great defender. He's a serviceable defender. Doug McDermott isn't a very good defender at all. Jakob Poeltl is a great low post defender, but he doesn't spread the floor. He's a great passer, great rebounder, great low post threat. But
my thing is with Jakob Poeltl, wouldn't we have the same issue we had with like a Turner. You know what I mean? I mean, not quite because I think Turner is better than Jakob Poeltl, but like you know what I mean? Like in terms of like the clashing of the two.
The difference is that like even if there is, Jakob Poeltl's would be more willing to come off the bench and play, and play limited roles, or you could spread them, right? Like Miles Turner, if say it's game 6 in a closeout in the playoffs, right? Like you want AD starting at center. You do.
Yeah.
Like he's your best center, even better than Miles Turner. But the problem is you can't do that if you have Miles Turner. You could do that if you have Jakob Poeltl, right? Because like Jakob Poeltl, I mean, he's came off the bench for the Spurs and doesn't complain or anything. But Miles Turner, arguably a top 5 center in the league, who's killing it this year, you can't justify sitting him. So I think that like if Miles Turner and Anthony Davis
over AD, you can though. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like if Buddy Hield and Miles Turner were the if those two, if Miles Turner was on any other team, you'd probably start him, but he's not better than Anthony Davis. And Jakob Poeltl knows he's not better than Anthony Davis. So like if push comes to shove, that's what you're hanging your hat on, is that like Jakob Poeltl, he's going to be more of a team guy. He's going to come off the bench if you need him to. He could start if you need him to. If it doesn't work with Miles Turner and AD, you're screwed. But if it doesn't work,
and you don't want any locker room issues, especially not for this season. Like what I mean, like you already don't have the best record, but then you add like the lack of chemistry, and you got guys, tension in the locker room. That you definitely don't want that in there.
Absolutely. Sorry, long day. Trading Russ would unlock this team, especially adding a bunch of shooters. I would make AD and Bron unstoppable. Yeah, I mean that's why I lean towards the Hornets deal, because I think the Hornets deal, like you get the shooting, you get the size on the perimeter, you get the defense, you get a scoring threat, right? You get a bunch of shooters and just guys that do multiple things. Spurs deal, again, I don't mind the Spurs deal. You get a lot of the same things in the Spurs deal that you do in the Hornets deal. The only difference is you get more overall size with the Spurs.
Yeah, I was about to say the Spurs deal is definitely
and you'd get more players. So that's my only thing. And it probably wouldn't cost as much because you're taking on Gordon Hayward's long-term salary and you're taking on Terry Rozier's long-term salary. Spurs are going to want both first.
The only thing is you're trading size for skill set, though. That's the only thing. Yeah. Like with the Hornets, definitely you get more of an overall skill set than you do with San Antonio.
Do you think we could get the Hornets deal, then in the offseason make a trade with the Nets for Kyrie, though? Sign and trade for Rozier and another piece. Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. If Kyrie wants to leave, because the problem that the Nets are going to have is that if Kyrie wants out and he leaves, they don't have any money to replace him. So, like, usually, a guy wants out, okay, fine, you let him go, and then you free, like Russ, right? Russ doesn't want to resign. Okay, fine, no big deal. We got $30 million cap space if he leaves. That's not the case for the Nets, because they still have KD on a max, still have Ben Simmons on a max, and then they have Joe Harris taking up the remaining salaries, plus like the little nuanced players, right? So they can't replace them. So the only option they would have is a sign and trade. So if Kyrie wanted to go to the Lakers, then they kind of don't have any choice, right? So at that point, you might as well sign and trade, get like a Terry Rozier. Maybe you could even get PJ Washington in that deal, and I'm sure the Lakers would do it. So you get a young power forward, and you get Terry Rozier, who's kind of like a Kyrie light. There you go. Like you got
at this point too, and it all depends on how the season ends out. I could see the Nets actually pulling this one out just because, like the way that they're playing right now, like they've really turned it around. Like them and the Celtics. I mean, arguably, like it's a decent matchup. You know what I mean?
I don't think anyone would be surprised if the Nets ended up winning the championship.
And that's what I'm saying. Oh, even if they get close, I don't think that. Forget Kyrie. Kyrie's off the table. You know what I mean? Like at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, thank you so much. Like and share, guys. Come on.
Thank you, sir.
This channel grow. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, just like all things, just like as it stands, Lakers takes time. Everything takes time. Took me a while to get to the point that I was at there. It takes a while to get to the point that we're here. Plus, we hadn't live streamed in a while, so that also doesn't help the algorithm, the almighty algorithm. But nonetheless, we're here today, and it's the new year, and we'll get back on track things. But gonna go about 10 more minutes. So, here's so good news is that AD is supposed to be back, right? AD is supposed to be returning at some point. We still don't have a timeline, but we know that he's coming back. I mean, even Anthony Davis said
before the All-Star break, hopefully.
Yeah. So even AD said, I'm good coming back. I don't have a timetable, but I'm supposed to start ramping up to get back in. So if we can make that run, we can get to like, even if we're not at 500, but get close, right? Like say we're a game out of like a play-in, you know, or the playoff spot or something like that, right? Now AD comes back. That's huge, right? Because you were playing like one of the best teams in the league when AD was back, right? So boom. Now you're off to the races. Hopefully you get a run. That also buys Rob Pelinka more time to find a trade, right? Because that's the thing. That's the problem with the Lakers is they started off the season so poorly that if they started off the season correctly and they won the games that they were supposed to win, which were most of them, then you know we might be on the inside looking out rather than the outside looking in. And now there's just more pressure, just so much more pressure to try to get to climb this mountain, and you don't have AD. And then if AD comes back, and so the idea is you go on a nice little run, AD comes back, go on a little run, do a good trade, you know, Spurs trade, Hornets trade, whatever trade, find a good deal, end up taking that deal, and then now you're in a position where you're running off to the races. Like that's the idea. And like now you're a legit contender. But one of the things that I've also mentioned when it comes to just doing a trade period is that like even if they don't win anything this year, like right, like let's say the Lakers they're too far out, they do the Hornets trade. You know, Lakers, let's say they make a nice push, but it's not enough, and they don't make the playoffs, right? Or let's say they lose in the first round. What you at least did with the trade is you allowed the Lakers to build chemistry, build camaraderie, build relations, build, you know, bonds and all of those things, which is still huge and important, right? So even if like tomorrow the Lakers were too far out of the play-in to where they can't make the playoffs, you still do the trade because there's not really anything out there in free agency, right? There's not really anything that's worth coming, like maybe Kyrie, but there's no guarantee he comes.
Yeah.
If the Nets make it to the finals or win the finals, Kyrie's probably not leaving, right? Like
not even that. Like even if they make it to like one round, like you know, third round, I don't think that.
Yeah, the Eastern Finals and they lose in a tough 7 or something like, and they're like, man, we're only a piece away. Like, yeah, I could see that being the case. So that's kind of my thinking is like, I just think however you slice, the Lakers need to do a deal. And the reason you do the deal is because at worst, you're just getting the depth you need and the players you need. And now you're building that chemistry. So next season, you can really go on a run. And it's like, okay, well, now we got 2 more years of LeBron. We got these players for the next, 2-3 years, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's go. Time to move. Right. And then Gordon Hayward, if he's not working out, he can't stay healthy. Well, then now you got him. He's an expiring contract. A team might be willing to take him on, unload some salary. So maybe you could swap some guys. Like it puts them in a better position. But what are your thoughts in general about that? Like, do you think that no matter what, the Lakers should do a trade? Do you think like, no, I mean, again, I don't want them to do a trade just to do a trade. You don't do a trade just to do a trade. But if you can find the right trade, do you want them to do that regardless? Or do you feel like, like, no, like if let's say AD doesn't come back.
Yeah.
Do you look at it as like, no, you still do a trade because, you're trying to build that chemistry, you're trying to build that camaraderie, things like that? Or do you think, no, wait till the offseason, see what you could get and ride it out if you're not going to make the playoffs this year? What are your thoughts?
I'm a firm believer that the grass is not always green on the other side. So like in my like, for example, like if we wait until the offseason, like just to wait it out and see what we can get. The trades that we have on the table right now via the Spurs, via the Hornets might not be available. That's the only issue. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like let's say we wait, it's not going to necessarily pay off. So it's like, I do agree if the free agency is not looking promising at all, you kind of have to. There really is no other choice. And you mentioned chemistry. Like I'm glad that you brought that up because like that plays such a vital role in like a championship. Like a lot of people discredit that, but like if players can't like like coexist on the court together, like coexist in the locker room. It just does not work. Like, show me an NBA championship team that the players just did not like. There was no chemistry. There was no like exactly like it doesn't exist. Like, it takes all of that to win a championship. I think that's like one of the most important parts. Obviously, like with good players and stuff like that too. But no, yeah, they have to do a trade. There is no other option if they're serious about winning a championship this year, or if they're just like, okay, we're just gonna go ahead and ride these last 2 years out with LeBron, and then we'll make a move. Which to me would be foolish. You have LeBron for 2 more years. That's you just increase your even though LeBron's skill is decreasing, you increase your championship by like 40%. You know what I mean? Like, let's just say 40%. You increase your chances of winning a championship by 40%. Like, you got LeBron. Like, do what you can for the next 2 years, and see what happens. It's better to say you tried than versus, oh, LeBron's getting ready to retire. Let's just wait, then blow the team up. You know what I mean? Like, that's your only other option. I don't see why we would do that. And we don't know how long AD is going to stay healthy and B want to stay in LA. You know what I mean? So it's like,
well, to add to that though, is that like look at the Clippers, right? Like, Kawhi Leonard's injured more than AD is, and Paul George is injured probably just as much as AD is. But they have the depth and the talent to where they can ride it out. So that way, when they're out, they're still competitive.
Yeah.
And then when Paul George is there, they usually win more games than they don't. And when Kawhi is there, they usually win more games than they don't. Like, that's kind of like the structure that I think the Lakers need to build. Build a good competitive team, and you're only going to get like 60 games a year at 80. Okay, fine. But those 60 games, you need to win as many as possible, if not all of them. So you got to win those games with 80. You're going to get LeBron for, probably 70 games or whatever. So you get those guys. So now you need to build a team around those guys. And the way you do that is a trade, like I said, like a Spurs trade or a Hornets trade, because then you get enough talent to where, hopefully both guys aren't out. But if one of them's out, you can still win on a nightly basis. If one's out, if they're both in, then you're probably winning more games than you're not. Like, that's kind of how I see the Lakers need to structure this team, personally. But how long do you think can LeBron hold the Lakers above water without the right pieces around him, where they still have a chance? I hope he doesn't get injured too by Karen. That's a big concern of mine as well. We all remember Kobe in that year, tore his Achilles trying to save him. Knock on wood. Hopefully it doesn't happen and nothing major happens to LeBron. He also takes care of his body like incredibly, right?
$2 million a year. Spends $2 million a year on his body.
So he's just a different breed. Like, it's crazy. But nonetheless, look, he's still playing at an elite level. So, I think he can hold him above water as long until he proves otherwise. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a lot of ask, right? Luckily, we don't have like this crazy tough schedule to where, like, I don't think he has to, like, like if we had like the Bucks, the Celtics, the Nuggets, the this, the that coming up, then it'd be like, okay, like it might not even be worth LeBron trying to carry and keep this team above water. But these like smaller teams, like, he's getting 40, but he's like, he could probably get 80. You know what I mean? Because like, it's just the competition isn't as tough. People aren't guarding him as tight. Stuff like that. Where like, if he's playing the Bucks, like everyone's honing in on him. Like, it's exhausting. He's wearing himself down trying to go get 40 to keep them above float. So that's kind of the difference. But hopefully just long enough for AD.
Question for you.
Yeah.
And I kind of know how you stand on this, but while AD is out, how would you feel about bringing Russ off the bench?
I don't mind it. I just think the problem is
statistics show that they pay better with him on the bench or coming off of the 6-man. But
yes, well,
I think what's the point? They bring him
your bench is non-existent.
Oh yeah, so what's the point? They bring him in like almost like to start the game anyway. So it's like I know what you mean, but it's just kind of
so like the problem is when Russ doesn't.
He can play the majority of the game too. Yeah. Like,
but like healthy, when Russ doesn't play, you don't get like our bench is non-existent. So the problem is that like, if you have Russ start, then we're screwed off the bench because you're gonna have to take both those guys out at some point. So at some point,
that's what I'm saying. Keep Russ in for the majority of the game. I know you can't play him the entire game, but keep him in. Just figure out the rotation. So we're like, okay, look, Like LeBron and Russ are starting, have Russ play the majority of the game. But when you need to switch Russ out, like have LeBron, and then you just obviously if you could make it to where like Russ plays the majority, maybe give him slightly more minutes than LeBron, then swap LeBron out, and then Russ goes on the bench, gets a little rester, put LeBron in, and
I get what you're saying. The problem is it wouldn't work like that. So like there would be a stretch where you're not going to have Russ because like okay, say the first quarter, you start the first quarter, right?
Okay.
Like you sub LeBron out,
yeah,
say at the 5-minute mark,
okay.
like 5-6 minute mark, right? And you keep Russ in the game.
Uh-huh.
Like what are you going to do? You're going to go have LeBron sit for 2 minutes and then bring him right back and then have him play for another 8 minutes. And then, yeah, Russ got rest, but like it just however it's like, there's going to be a point where you're going to either you're going to run one of them to the ground or you're going to end up you're going to have moments where you don't have either of them, where it's nice to have Russ come off the bench because that way you can flip flop them. So like they can play together, but then also you could take
LeBron's unit, then Russ's unit.
Yeah. And stuff like that. And it helps with the bench and all that stuff. But just in general, I mean, that would probably be the best case. But our last little question, then we'll skate on out of here. Plus Richardson, Pirtle, LeBron James, and AD can cover for Boyan. It won't be a problem as long as we surround him with defenders. He'll be fine. Yeah, I mean, if you could work out a deal to go get them, maybe use the trade exception to then go get Boyan, that would be absolutely solid. Like I said, I mean, the Lakers need to do a deal. The Lakers need to make a trade, but hopefully it's sooner rather than later. I wouldn't mind Burks at all either, like at all. Like if you could swap Bev
especially not for Bev.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it at all. So, but anyway, any last parting words before we get on out of here?
No, excited for the new year. Super excited. Hopefully we can make a huge playoff run.
Yeah, hopefully we can make a nice little run. Hey, you got to step in the right direction, right? We're heading in the right direction. But anyways, for those that are new here, again, subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate it. We're trying to grow the channel here. Live stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 p.m. Central or Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern time. So subscribe here, like the video on your way out. We greatly appreciate it. And we will see you all in the next one. Peace.